I'm setting it up now.
Okay, we're live.
We got Home Depot.
All right, guys, welcome. We are about a minute out from the FOMC rate announcement, and we are expecting them to give us another quarter point cut.
Hey there, Bob's here too, but Phil's the floor. And
how's everybody doing today? Awesome. All right, so once I get some headlines here, first we're going to get a market reaction right now because it just turned 2 p.m. So you guys will see that on the chart here. We're working within this range. We got this range from about 61.75 down to 61.20. I got some major moving averages marked off here. This is a 4-hour chart of the S&P 500 futures. We're kind of the mindset that the markets have gone down into the FOMC announcement. Therefore, we would be looking for a bounce out of this. Expected is the quarter point cut, which has more or less been priced in at this point. So now it's all going to be about the presser. And if he spooks the market in the presser, obviously then things could drop some more. But otherwise, I think if things go as expected, once the presser is done, this market, I think, will be higher. But we'll see what happens.
yeah, right now everything's pretty flat. So SPY went red here. But have we got any announcement yet?
Yeah, it's out. And so let me, countdown window can go away. All right, so we got a quarter point cut down to 4.5%. And the FOMC median forecast shows 50 basis points of rate cuts in 2025 to 3.9%. So that's all as expected. Fed projections show 1 of 19 officials see no cuts in 2025, 3 see 1 cut, and 10 see 2 cuts, 3 see 3 cuts, 1 sees 4 cuts, and 1 sees 5 cuts.
Yeah, I'm in the 5 cut camp.
Yeah, I'm in the higher cut camp as well because I think they're not telling us, but I just think they're getting ready for a recession here.
Totally agree.
And we'll look at some charts later on that kind of look at the jobs numbers and things of that nature. Yield inversion.
Yeah, guys. And just so you know, if I'm not looking right at the camera, I'm looking at my other PC. So you'll probably get a good look at my ear all afternoon.
Fed policymakers see a 4.3% unemployment rate at the end of 2025 versus 4.4 in September projections. I think that's going to be wildly off.
Yeah, BF, I think Nvidia is gonna probably rip into the end of the year. Our algorithm is showing that it's oversold and that the year-end mutual fund selling is over. And we had 9 down days in a row on the Dow stocks, and same with the value stocks. So we should get some sort of snapback on that.
Fed policymakers see a 2.1% GDP growth in 2025 versus 2.0 in the September projection. I think that's wildly off too. In considering extent and timing of additional rate adjustments, Fed will assess incoming data. Yes, you will.
So the reaction has been pretty muted so far, Phil.
Yeah, we're kind of pressing down toward the 20 SMA, fairly big level. You start losing that, and that opens up a move lower toward 60, 70 area, in my opinion. But lately, they've just kind of had an initial reaction and a holding pattern until the presser. So the presser should introduce more volatility, and that's going to start in about 30 minutes.
Yeah, the stocks that were down here on the announcement have already went back green, Phil. MicroStrategy's up. NVIDIA's back up. Oxy's up. Chopping back to flat. Quiet group today. No chatting at all, huh? Unless I'm missing something.
All right, so there's our presser countdown. Like I said, that'll introduce more volatility. They are pushing things lower here. So this is going to be about we're taking out last week's low in the market, which is down here. We are pressing below that 20 SMA. If they're going to, this is an area I would watch for reaction here as we press down into 6,100. I'm going to switch to a 5-minute chart now and took out the overnight low. What's Mr. Bitcoin doing here? $103.7, holding up fairly well. Bitcoin's overnight low is at 103.124, so we'll see if they take that. The Monday low is important on Bitcoin, which is that level there, 103.289. They swept it, grabbed some stops, they popped it overnight, and now it's going to be all about the reaction after the presser. So the 4-hour Ranger buy zone was holding support since last week, and we're breaking that here. We did hit the fib extension down at 60.98. We'll see if that holds, and then we get a rotation back up. But we're well outside of our range we've been in, so Fed liquidity has been going back up, so we're risk on that and looking for another wave higher here. and continue to press this down. So obviously, knowing that the rate cut was baked in, they're using this opportunity here to push down. They're obviously running stops. So the question now is, when the pressure starts, is this going to come back up, basically clearing stops out, and then this reverses higher? So lately, the real move comes after the pressure begins. But things are extremely oversold in various things. So this is getting really, really down there in terms of oversold. SPX has been not as oversold as some like equal weighted SPX index has been really oversold. Small caps really oversold. Dow Jones 30 really oversold. So
Yeah, guys, I mean, if we don't get a Christmas rally, then that is not good news for the
no,
markets in 2025 at all.
no, it's not. It's really not.
I mean, we've had the Dow down 90s in a row, and we've had the value stocks down at least that long, and these are 60-year records that are broken. So this isn't normal distribution or selling. This is abnormal going into 2025, which will be an abnormal year. Remember, people are betting on a 20 to 25% return on the stock market in 2025, and I just think they're probably smoking dope.
Yeah, this is really pushing down here. So this old FOMC announcement. This is from the November FOMC. You really don't want to get below that. That really starts to open up the doors below. We're, the 6,000 strike on SPX. I can switch over to an SPX chart. We just rolled, so the contract premium is pretty high. This SPX 6,000 level is, large support in terms of like the options and things like that. So this area should be supportive if we were to get down there.
Bill, the title of the video is for last month. Maybe that's why people aren't showing up.
Oh, I had changed that. They must have reverted it back.
Thanks, Wesley.
Oh.
You have a lot more people here.
Yeah, my title says live stream FOMC rate announcement 12/18/2024. So I don't know.
Oh, maybe I'm in the wrong one.
Got a lot of people chatting here.
Yeah, I'm in the wrong one. That was weird. It wasn't showing up. There we go. All right, sorry about that.
Bob's catching up, guys.
I'm a month behind. I'm still on vacation.
All right, let's see here.
There we go. We're getting a bounce now.
So I think they clearing running some stops. Again, unless we start cracking below 6,000 SPX, I think a lot of this is just pre-pressure positioning. We'll go back to the main ES chart here.
If anybody wants to get a quick trade on NVDL, you just put a hammer on the 3-minute, broke below the channel, and above 67.30, you'll put a swing trade in. I think NVDA is going up over the next couple days, minimum. So I think that might be a good quick trade. We did a nice one yesterday. And so it looks like it's setting up another nice one here. If you're so inclined, you could buy it here at 66.70 area, maybe halfway down that hammer. And then your stop could be just below the bottom of that hammer.
Overall, pretty strong trend higher. Again, we're pulling back into the daily 20 SMA. Actually under it now, but this is where you want to watch for a head fake lower. But if they don't bid this up during the presser, then there's definitely some issues here.
Yeah. Start investigating the ETF called Cash.
Yeah. Now, Bitcoin's holding up fairly well so far.
So is MicroStrategy.
What's RTY doing? Small cap's getting destroyed as well.
So is large caps.
Yeah, they are just gutting this thing. A lot of stops getting ran here. Well, they are not rallying, or they're taking their sweet time to rally this thing. I'll tell you that. Got one more fib extension down here at 6073. That is an area I would look for a bounce. If that area doesn't bounce, then we got issues. We got major issues. That's a fairly decent area for risk reward. To go long.
Mm. Phil, there's a fractal, the 1929 fractal. I don't subscribe to it necessarily, but it called for selling going into this week. This week actually being positive, and actually the market rolling over and just continuing on its descent to a 1930 bottom. And we're just not getting the lift this week either. So really, really interesting, environment that we're in.
Right.
But for sure, somebody wants out. That is for sure.
Well, they're either running stops to reverse. Like that's why I said the 6,000 area on SPX is kind of important. That's your major support for 10 points above it, and that could be all this is.
Yeah.
Just a dip below and then a reversal.
You just wonder if China and Japan are selling our equities over the last couple of weeks too.
Because of the options positioning. It makes for a buoyant market into 6,000 SPX. So there's a gap to fill down there as well. Notice down here we have a gap fill, and that might be what they're after. At this gap right here at 5998.74 on SPX. And I think they may just get that. So we'll see. Keep an eye on that gap.
They ate into that whole hammer on NVIDIA.
Yeah, I don't think I think this is gonna be. This is all about the pressure reaction now. Everything in between is noise.
They actually started selling this off about 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the announcement, Phil. Oil's holding up green. TLT didn't like it. So that means we're getting a a positive yield curve, Phil.
Well, let's take a look at Mr. Yield Curve here.
Bitcoin should like a higher long-term bond.
Yield curve is dipping down a little bit. Actually, this is a weekly chart. Let's look at hourly. Yeah, yield curve's heading lower. On the 210. All right, so a little dippy do here on the ahead of the presser. We got 8 more minutes until the presser.
Yeah. Gold doesn't like when the 10-year yield is rising, so.
All right, so now that we have the initial range reaction, right? So this is the range you'd want to see us get back into, okay? If we're gonna basically round trip this entire move. The FOMC rate announcement is up higher here. We're gonna plot that there. That black. December FOMC announcement. All right. So let's draw another box. That's going to be our this is going to be our range.
We just put a swing low in on that NVDL 5-minute. So maybe it's getting ready for the presser.
So this is our range, our reaction range here. So midpoint 6108. Most likely we'll get to that. If we start climbing back above that, then that puts a round trip move, meaning that we get back to the announcement level in play. Yeah. But this level here becomes important now, the midpoint, because usually when you get your range reaction, you look for a push up to that midpoint. And if they're going to continue to push this down, I would expect this midpoint to hold. That's typically the playbook when you get your initial move.
Yeah, and Phil, can you put the Skype, what you're seeing on my Skype or no?
Oh, you don't see it on the stream?
No,
Um, I
you,
can try if it,
you don't have to. I'll just follow along on the YouTube. I'll just be delayed.
there.
There you go. I got it. Thanks.
Let's check out Mr. Bitcoin here. Yeah, Bitcoin's holding up pretty well considering what the S&P 500 is doing. Although we are getting a pretty decent bounce now. We're about 20 points off the low, 20, 15 to
Yeah,
20 off the lows.
Nvidia's ripping now. MicroStrategy's going back to flat. So probably what you said, Phil. Looks like a stop hunt.
So I think, again, it's pretty noisy until the presser starts to give us a broader directional move. But I think if Bitcoin can start breaking out of this and start turning up higher, right? And that's typically what we would expect at this point in the move, is that this starts to turn up and start grinding back up, and we see a sharp move higher. The next target, we do have an area above here, this 109 to 112 area. There's fib targets and things like that in there. Above that, though, ultimately, I'm looking for a move up to this 2-year moving average, yearly moving average times 2 is technically what that is. That's currently up at 128, and typically you get to that, right, in these bullish environments. As you in post-halving, you typically hit that moving average. So I'm kind of looking for the same thing to happen. Back in 2020 to 2021, not only did we get back up to it, so currently we're kind of in this situation, right? And we're looking for a move back to it here. And then 2020 to 2021 just blew through it for a typical post-halving type of move. Now, the argument is, are we going to get an early post-halving move or a shortened one because the macro picture starts to roll over into a recession? And so then you have that argument versus like the cycle bros, that if the cycle bros have their way, right, you have another move that just smokes past that level and gets up toward what we would actually look for is a move up to 173, 174. That would be like your measured move for this cycle. And obviously there's higher targets that are called out. I mean, if we keep rolling up to different fib targets, you can get up to like really stupid numbers, but typically 173 would be the mark for this cycle. But can we get there before this whole thing starts to roll over? It's certainly possible. I mean, if you look back here, Bitcoin can just go vertical, right? And this is when it's fun, because you can just buy and it doesn't matter where you get in at pretty much for a few weeks. It's just vertical. Now, don't know if we have enough juice in the tank. This was an environment where there was a ton of Fed printing, right? So a little different. There's still a lot of liquidity in this system, but it's not like they're actively printing. Right now, what's helping things is institutional flows have been very positive, so that's keeping a good bid under this thing. But will this completely blow off? We'll have to see how it goes in the next week or two. All right, so I think we're going to work our way back up to 6108. We'll have to see here. We got a couple more minutes, and then the presser is going to start. And then I will shout out some headlines that we get off of that. And we'll see what the reaction is. While we're waiting, let me see what we
2 minutes to go.
Jeff, actually, I think the 2 years more telling. If the 2 year starts to drop in a pretty good trend down, that's typically what I would expect to see if this market's going to roll over. What's the dollar doing? Dollar has been, dollar Dollar just shot way up. Dollar's been interesting because I thought the dollar would actually start to roll over here, and it's just not relenting. So we'll have to see how, again, things aren't done until the presser's done and what the reaction would be. But so far with this dollar move, that's not conducive to higher stocks and risk on.
You got China just printing yuan like it's going out of style.
Okay, we got actually new lows now. Just poked a new low by a tick or so.
Yep, went right back down again.
That is your classic dead cat bounce. You can see it on the 1 minute chart, right? Come down, boink, dead cat bounce. All right, so we should be getting some headlines here as Powell starts to speak.
Well, he's not. Wow. Huh. Yeah, they're giving up the ghost today.
Yeah, we're heading into the 6,000 level on SPX.
At some point, when does this become a panic move?
You'd have to start really cracking below 6,000. He's not even speaking yet.
No, I mean, I'm looking at the Dow, DIA.
Okay, here he comes.
Printing a bullish, bearish engulfing pattern today.
Powell's going to start speaking here. All right, let's see what we get.
Did he say good afternoon?
All right, so far the reaction to his comments are pretty good. This can totally reverse, guys. So if this is just a stop grab, then I would expect this to come back up. All the way up. So Bitcoin's doing here. Yeah, Bitcoin's back up to got a sniper sell on the daily on Bitcoin, which not a huge fan of that, but the last one really didn't go anywhere. And sometimes that happens when you get strong up moves because things are persistently kind of like near an overbought state. We'll have to keep an eye on that.
MicroStrategy's going green.
So far, as you can see with the wicks here on the 4-hour chart, a lot of support, a lot of bid support here when you get these wicks like this. So unless this just plunges through here on something off of the presser, I suspect this is going to try to bounce back up. All right, in terms of the headlines from so far from his prepared remarks, Powell says we're squarely focused on two goals. Labor market remains solid, and the labor market is cooled from an overheated state. Economic activity has expanded at solid pace. Housing activity has been weak. Wage growth has eased. Consumer spending is resilient, and investment in equipment has strengthened. Labor market is not a source of inflation pressures. When he says focused on two goals, I think he's talking about employment and price stability. Inflation much closer to that 2% goal. Fed says, or Powell says, that growth in consumer spending has remained resilient, but housing activity has been weak. Inflation expectations remain well anchored. Yields are climbing off of the comments, basically reiterating that the economy is strong overall and the labor market is solid, and they're getting closer to their 2% inflation goal. So he's cheerleading. We'll see if markets can poke a new high here and shift this market structure higher. So they need to get back above that 60.96 area. What I'd like to see here is this area. This is basically our initial reaction, right? And then you had a dead cat bounce. This is what I would call the head fake lower. And so I'd like to see this 60-80 area not be violated now. Again, algos are just reacting to the comments and things like that. So Powell says they can be more cautious in reducing rates. Total PCE probably rose 2.5% in the 12 months ending in November. Now, while he's saying inflation is getting to their goal, if you look at what's happening, though, it's creeping back up. If you look at core PCE and things like that, it's not going in the right direction. So he basically is saying that their policy stance is now significantly less restrictive, being that they've lowered a full percentage point from the high. And now they can be more cautious as they consider further adjustment to the rate.
Yeah, Eli Johnson, there's two reasons. One is that they're still worried. The market is still worried that inflation hasn't been tamed yet. And number two, the Chinese are selling their bonds to because they have a currency crisis.
All right, so they're testing that range. Starts to get a little dicey if they start cracking below that. They can see the stops were hit right there. Now we'll see if that's just the stop reversal. So far, that's what it's looking like. Nope. They start getting acceptance under there, we're going to probably gun to these lows. Now let's see. Did we get 6,000 on the SPX? Yeah, we did. We hit it. We still have that gap closed down there as well. No, actually, we don't. I thought we had a gap down there. I must have misspoke or was looking at the wrong time frame. Actually, we don't have any gaps down there anymore. No, we do. Actually, this technically is a gap that didn't close because we closed here and we opened there. That's right. So, sorry. Very close to it. Gap close level is 59.98.75, basically. So, we'll see if they actually get the closing value of that. Then we'll see if this thing can bounce. It's very close. They might call that good. Typically like to see that level at least hit. What's Mr. Bitcoin doing? 103.5. One minute chart here. Fighting to get back into that initial range reaction. Let's see if there's any more juicy tidbits from Mr. Powell here. Powell says we're not on any preset course. Policymaker projections for policy rate are higher for next year, consistent with higher inflation. Fed has been moving policy toward a more neutral stance. Unemployment rate has moved up but remains low. Labor market conditions now less tight than in 2019. Total PCE probably rose 2.5% in the 12 months ending in November. Now, I wanted to show you guys, this is yellow is the unemployment rate. Red is the core PCE, which is like, I think the inflation that should matter the most, essentially. Normally unemployment rate's always above core PCE, right? We got this very inflationary environment. And so as soon as those two crossed back, or the core PCE crossed back under the unemployment rate, which is typically the relationship, that was the pause in hikes. And that's what we got on that cross, that pause. Now we're reducing. If you look at the last time Fed went from pausing to reducing rates, right? Back here, market still went up into this area before it rolled over, and that was COVID. I think this was going to be a normal recessionary type thing, and then COVID kind of happened, and they reacted with just incredible amount of printing. Back here, Fed cut a few times. Between the third and fourth cut is where the market peaked out, and that's exactly what's going on now, right? We're in our fourth cut. So this is where it kind of gets a little dicey in terms of how much higher the market can go. It can still go higher, but you're kind of running out of gas at this point in regards to what the job market looks like and what the Fed is doing in reaction to that. If you look at the unemployment rate, we got a rounded bottom, like we showed you guys in the video yesterday, and that always precedes a recession.
Right, and that's what we've been talking about. The stock market follows the Fed cuts with a slight delay. And so the last of the hurrah here is the Christmas rally, week one rally. Then after that, there's really no impetus for the market to go higher. So the collateral have been reinvested, and the year-end buying has been exhausted. So that's why you have to get more and more defensive as you go. Inflation will roll over with a recession for sure. So they'll be cutting like dogs next year.
Paul said the slower pace of rate cuts reflects expectation of higher inflation. The
Yep.
cuts we make next year will be reacting to data.
He'll be eating those words because Trump is not going to be expanding the government's money supply to
Right.
the levels that everybody's expecting.
Right. Yeah. Department of Government Efficiency is basically what they are going to do, and we have to assume they're going to do it, is that's going to make GDP contract. Just the problem is GDP has been ballooning off of the expanding debt of the government, right? Because that all trickles down into the economy one way or the other. And you have all of these government job openings, right? That's been kind of supplementing the jobs data, but it's extremely inefficient, right? A lot of those government jobs are extremely inefficient. So it's not really, that's never really good, healthy growth. And it's just propping up numbers at that point. So it doesn't last. And I think, I don't see GDP going higher next year at all. Powell said today's decision was a closer call, meaning they were going to potentially get voted on a pause, but they decided it was the right call because we thought it was the best decision to foster the achievement of both our goal of maximum employment and price stability. So, in terms of rate cuts, the overall gist here is that they're being, he's being more hawkish. He's basically saying that they're not going to be as aggressive on future rate cuts. So implying potentially that, maybe there's a pause on the next one. I don't think they're going to pause on the next one because I think the data is going to start to come in. And again, he said they're data dependent here. And I think the data is going to force their hand for another cut. And typically, if you guys look too, when we start gaining our cut cycles, right, it doesn't stop at the fourth one, right? It's typically just nonstop at that point because then things start to roll over and the data is not good. So, yeah, I just don't think it's going to be a four cuts and pause again. I don't see the data supporting that at this point.
And if you get a rate cut and the 10-year yield goes higher, it doesn't help the mortgage markets or the debt markets at all for people who borrow.
Right. And here's our 210 yield curve. All right. And so until this gets up to 0.6, which then we'd start looking for recession confirmation, the markets can still roam higher. Right. So if we were up at 0.6 or close to it at this point, I would be much more cautious with the markets. So at this point, we still have room to run. The thing that gets nutty, though, is when you look at some of the correlations that we've had in the past, it just does not make sense in terms of, if we look at like job openings, for example, it's just biggest divergence we've ever seen in terms of job openings to the stock market. They normally trade hand in hand, essentially, right? Those data prints go hand in hand, and we just have this massive divergence.
I wish somebody would call them out on a question saying the job market is good, yet job openings have collapsed. Can you explain the disparity?
Yeah. Yeah, they just don't. All those questions are pre-prepared and vetted. There's no surprises.
Yeah.
All right, so the gap is closed back here. I really don't see any other gaps to close for much lower. So this market's either going to fall off a cliff here, or we'll get some sort of reversal. But right now, normally, if he's going to start getting a reversal off the presser, we'd probably be seeing it by now. So this is getting into bear territory here in terms of this move.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, doesn't look like this doesn't bode well for the end of this week, ending green.
No, Santa needs a new garment.
And Bitcoin is starting to spill too. Bitcoin effectively just did a dead cat bounce as well. So now it's going to be a matter of does Bitcoin grab these stops here under these lows, right? And reverse. But right now it's being dragged down with the rest of the market. So
Yeah, Phil, the DIA, the Dow index, is painting an bearish engulfing pattern right now. 10 days down. I think we're getting to
yeah,
unprecedented
I
levels
don't
here.
like. I'll be honest with you. I don't like bearish engulfings after a move down. I think they actually do the opposite. If
Yeah,
they're at the top, yeah, run for the hills.
10 days in a row.
10 days in a row and then a bearish engulfing. I just, if you go back and you look at how those types of bearish engulfings, they don't end up doing anything. It's almost like a capitulation the other way.
Yeah, I hope that's what it is.
They're not, where bearish engulfings are located matters a lot.
We just had a big reversal candle in NVIDIA. Somebody must be whispering in his ear right now. Jerome, get bullish, brother.
Yeah, he doesn't want this thing tanking right before Trump's getting in because he's just gonna get, like last time, he's just gonna get an earful.
The Donald, I gave you one job, Jerome, one job only. Pump this stock market.
Paul says it's premature to make any conclusions on the impact of tariffs. Don't know what countries, what size, how long, etc.
Mm-hmm. That's a great answer. Okay.
So even though we're down in this area below the in the initial reaction, right? We can still get a move back up toward this midpoint of the initial reaction. So measuring the initial reaction and then the bounce, and then we get a break of that initial reaction, right? So getting back above 60.79 at this point would improve the odds that we get a back test of the mid range at 6108. If you get back above 6108, then you actually start looking for a complete round trip to the announcement level. At this point, the way that this works is you want to get back to the announcement level, right? And then once you do, you're going to have a pretty decent move higher. Now, whether we do that today or that doesn't occur until next week, but that's the level now going forward for these markets into year end. Is this level up here where we had the FOMC announcement? So on the futures, that's 61.3650. On SPX, that's going to be 60.61 or so. The actual index.
Okay, nice swing low put in on NVIDIA.
So we got that gap close. Again, anything south of 6,000 on the SPX should be short-lived dip. But if not, if this market refuses to get back above 6,000, that's things can start getting really weird here. Next big level I have is a weekly 9 EMA, about 40 points lower at this point. So this also could be a dip to the weekly 9 is a pretty significant dip buy area on a pullback if we get there. This market's making a new low. So nothing Jerome is saying is making these guys happy. NASDAQ's down about 280 points. Powell says the extent and timing of cuts is not a decision we've made. The higher inflation is probably biggest factor for new projections. And he's talking about their dot plots going out into the next year where they project the cuts to be. So I think the takeaway here is, they're, and rightly so, that they're concerned with the uptick in inflation, and that's going to prevent how aggressive they are in rate cuts. And market doesn't like it at the moment.
Mm-mm.
But unless the bears can really turn 6,000 into resistance, because of the way that the options market is structured, there's a lot of support in this area. So even though we're dipping below it, right, there can be a pretty aggressive snapback higher.
Mm.
But right now it's trend down, and you need to start seeing a reversal and a structure where we break a swing high here. Now I'm looking at a 1 minute chart because obviously the volatility is up, but yeah, you have to break the high here, swing high at 59.95. Check on Mr. Bitcoin. Again, this line here is the Monday low. Those are important levels because a lot of times what will happen is they'll take out the Monday low and then they recover and they move back up. So Bitcoin's holding up, I would say holding up a lot better than the stock market at the moment. I think what I want to do is I want to pull up, let's throw this window in here. This is our indicator. Three-minute chart. I got a line here. I always love when I have these mystery lines. Probably bounces off of it. I don't remember what that was for.
Yeah, everything's rolling over pretty hard now.
Yeah, the dollar's the dollar spiking is putting I think it's throwing a curveball on everything. So our indicator here, yellow is extreme. So right now we're just in a very extreme trend. We had a trigger bar set up, which basically means, hey, heads up. Now I'm looking at a 3-minute chart. But this was like a heads up, hey, maybe you're turning, but it did not confirm. Then we continued to sell down. We got a negative 1,000 tick, which is basically meaning that there's a lot of broad selling going on in the stock market. Bitcoin is pushing lower. Now it's pushing under 103.
Mm. I think MicroStrategy made a new low for the day.
Yeah, should have. Bitcoin did. What you want to watch here on Bitcoin is if this hourly, where did that go? Where did my Bitcoin chart go? If the hourly on Bitcoin, now we only have Yeah, we don't have much time left on this hourly close. I was going to say if this thing closed back above here and created a swing failure here, that would be good, but it's not going to. It doesn't look like. We only got a minute left. It would take a $300-400 bounce right here to save that. So that close is bearish. Jerome killed the market
again. I laughed. He said, "Oh, he'll do nothing to disrupt the market going into the end of the year," and he disrupted the market going into the end of the year.
Yeah, and it's not good because December gets dicey.
Yeah,
You really don't want to lose supportive levels, especially when they're supportive on the options market into OPEX. You don't want to lose that because, especially in the month of December, things can get unruly.
so Palantir was up $3, and now Palantir is flat. That was one of the golden children.
Yeah, so Bitcoin's coming into some support here on the 4-hour chart, but not the greatest closes.
Mm-mm.
But there is some support here on the chart here for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, you wouldn't be surprised if we got a little bit of a relief bounce coming into here. But the stock market's not happy. We're getting another 1,000 tick. So unless Powell says something important here to the upside, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to see a happy market here going into the close.
No, he better start singing.
He better start dancing. He's still talking, still taking questions. Powell says, I'm confident we're on a path to 2% inflation. It might take another year or two from here to get to 2%. It's the first time I think I've heard him say it's going to take that long.
That's a long time.
That strikes me as a lot different than things they've implied in previous pressers. But that's going back to that core PCE chart. I mean, you can see it's ticking up here, right? Pretty obvious, like going the wrong way. So he's saying, oh, we're making good progress, this and that. But in reality, since May, they're going backwards. They're actually not making progress. So what he's saying versus reality isn't matching up. He's trying to, paint a picture that, things are progressing along, but they're not making any progress at all. It's actually quite bad.
NVIDIA is going flat for the day.
Yeah, Wesley, everything's on the fifth wave. So
I didn't want to be right for the sell-off for another week.
oh, let's see. Selling has slowed a bit here, even though we're going to probably put a new low here on the session. But, in terms of the speed of the drop, that's kind of slowed down here a bit. We're getting yellow on the histogram, the super histogram. So, and we're getting a bit of a bullish divergence here. So let's see. See if we get a trigger candle print and then an arrow, up arrow. That would indicate, look for bounce. Bitcoin's down to 102,400.
Wow. Palantir is going red. I mean, some of these stocks are up just ridiculous amounts of percentages this year.
And there goes ES. So ES is Oh, let's do SPX. Where are you? There you are.
Mm.
Yeah. So the fact that the 6,000 level has gotten pretty much smoked here is actually really not good, because now you start getting into negative gamma, and it can get dicey.
Mm.
We actually have another gap to fill here at 59.50. Excuse me. And we filled it.
Good. Mm.
No, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. I had my line drawn on the wrong mark. Disregard that, folks. My bad. This is on the SPX. Yeah, this is a really bad reaction to Powell. Really bad. There will be a relief bounce, but this is just not good at all. The fact that we lost 6,000 actually is really bad in terms of the market and support levels.
Yeah. I'm saying when higher degree of confidence, the Dow have already topped.
I would be in that camp. I think the Dow has topped already. Yep. So, like, it's interesting because now with this setup, you have to look for, like on Bitcoin, for example, you have to look for a lower high and see if the lower high is all we get. And the reason is because that's what we look for, right? When we are putting in a top. So let's just say we topped out at 108,500. Let's say that's the top. So then what ends up happening is typically what you'll get is a test of that high, right? So then does that mean 107? If we come back up, 107 I have is so this is a 618 is the 105,959, 107,027 is the 786. And then if you get really high up, you can test the 90% up at 107.7. This now becomes really important because you will get a bounce back up to retest, right? That's typically how the tops are going to go. And that if that holds, that's it. Like, you got to make a new high now if all these higher projections are going to pan out.
Now you know why, guys. I've been adding to dips and the fiat and the crash slowly but surely.
This is a kind of important spot here in terms of support and resistance for BTC. We'll have to see if it bounces off of that. But Powell is absolute kryptonite right now for these markets. He's going to get a phone call later from who.
I don't know if Trump will be too upset that the market crashes before he takes over.
He might have PTSD, Bob.
What's that?
He might have PTSD from the last go around.
That's true.
Bitcoin is down to 101,450. Probably going to get this swing low down at 100,652.
Yeah, guys, markets don't like strong dollars.
Okay, Bitcoin just took out that swing low. Nope, not quite actually. Didn't quite take it out. Yeah, so Bitcoin just broke through that support level we talked about. That's just not good. Especially if it doesn't snap back above it. You can over excuse me, you can overthrow it if you snap back above it pretty quickly, but if not, that's not good. So we got to watch to see if we stay accepted below this area here. All right, back to ES, SPX. We are bouncing off of the 4-hour Ranger buy zone on the SPX. So that's been fairly supportive for a long time here on this move higher. So if this is just kind of this is it for the reaction, then I would expect this to hold this area. And we have hit the weekly 9 EMA, Bob.
Amazing. They did
Bitcoin's
it.
having a bounce off of 100,668. But yeah, so in terms of like swing buy levels, guys, the weekly 9 is a big level. When you get a pullback in the trend, right? Hitting the weekly 9 is typically, and you also have your daily 50 in this area. So this general area is a pretty big support zone, in my opinion. Bitcoin big bounce and reversal here. We'll see if that hammer holds, but pretty big reversal here on BTC. We'll see if the rest of the market catches the hint. That's what I was talking about, guys, on that support level. If they overthrow it, you want to see a big reaction. Now you want to see this hold back over it, okay? How this candle holds now, we have to basically see how this prints out into the hourly close. So it's a little hard to say here what that's going to look like until that closes. 15 minutes, still a few more minutes before that candle closes. Basically like a Darth Maul candle on this one here. This 5-minute hammer, which is what started the reversal, so far is holding. Typically, like when you get a reversal candle, what I like to do is I like to look at the middle of that wick. Make that black so you can see it, right? So if this reversal is really going to hold here, generally I want to see this level. I don't want to see any closes below this level, right? So that's the fact that we're not really holding above this reversal, this support zone is not great. I want to see price stay above this rectangle essentially, just because of the way the price structure is on the longer term chart, right? If you look, like this area came, hit our head, hit our head, finally break through, right? So essentially, I want to see this area more or less hold. You can overthrow them a little bit, but they should be quick if they do. You don't want to start accepting under this level now, in my opinion, on BTC. The tape, it's Bitcoin's very, very volatile as it is during the day, especially during the New York session anymore. It's just, I think because now we're kind of in this institutional zone of, acceptance. And anymore, the New York session is really volatile. So now you've just thrown gas on this thing. So, we're just whipping around, huge amounts. And these 5-minute candles are like $800. It's just they're big ranges, and volatility is very high. All right, let's look at the 15-minute chart here. That's not really that that candle there. I'd like to see a hammer with a little smaller body. Technically, I guess that's a hammer, but 30 minutes still forming. We got another 15 minutes before that closes. And the 60 minutes is going to look the same as well. Like I said, so far, bulls are defending that area. Like I said, I like to see that middle of the initial wick on the reversal move hold. So far it is. Don't really want to see, because we're looking at a 5-minute chart, don't want to see 5-minute closes under 101.231 in terms of Bitcoin. Take a look at back to the SPX here, back to the 3-minute chart. Our indicator is saying, basically just strong trend at this point. If I go down even to a 1-minute chart, what you'll see now, 1 minute's a lot more noisy, right? So you're going to get, I don't really use like the sniper buys on a 1 minute, especially in this situation where it's a strong trend down, because I'd have to adjust it for being more strict in how it fires. But anyway, the trend is down here. So typically what happens is when we get these green readings on this line, right, it tends to snap back down. So, that's where you get into a situation on a strong trend where you get the pops up and then they get rejected back down. And again, this is a 1-minute chart, but you can kind of see more of like the reactions on those initial pushes up. Until this histogram starts to go green, trend is down, right? It's basically confirming trend down, and not seeing a lot in the way of this turning just yet. And there's no signals on the 3-minute. So
the Bitcoin complex stocks are all getting blown up. MicroStrategy is getting its head handed to it. Live by the sword, die by the sword there, Michael Saylor.
He truly doesn't care.
Yeah. His shareholders might start.
He's just like, I'm just going to press the gas until you guys tell me I can't. Yeah.
Everything's pushing down now.
Powell blew it up.
Yeah. Palantir's down $1 now. The only thing I'm short, besides my yield max stuff. Is he still yakking?
Let's see here. Mr. Powell, what are you doing? Yep, he's still yakking.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, you got to shift the narrative here, buddy. Keep talking.
Or shut up. Everything's filling gaps now. Nvidia's going back down to 0 for today.
Powell says, I expect another very good year next year. They're in his ear going, Houston.
There's a glitch in the matrix.
Jerome Powell has said, we have avoided a recession. He's pulling out all the stops.
Yeah. Huh.
Next year is good, and we've avoided a recession.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be dovish on the next meeting. These guys are just like, I don't know, man. How do we shoot ourselves in the foot the most? That's like their slogan.
Yeah.
Because if you blow it, then you're just back and forth with your policy, and you just kind of look like you're floundering around. You don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Powell looks very tired and very stressed.
Yeah.
This is not a guy with joy in his eyes. I can tell you that right now.
He's sitting there saying to his staff, "You told me the stock market would go up with these words." We're starting to get a bid here, though.
Yeah, we are getting a bounce. Powell says we don't overreact to a couple months of inflation prints.
Feed me more, see more.
But that's the it's like they keep glossing over it. But the fact of the matter is, it's not a couple months, right? It's literally since May, right? May to June was higher. June and every month since then has been higher prints.
Yeah.
Or flat, right? It was flat August to September, but the inflation stopped going down in May. So that's May, so June, July, August, September, October, and likely November. So, it's like what he should say is like inflation, reality is inflation's been cranking back up in the last few months and we got to stop raising rates. So that's what he should say. The market would even sell off worse though. So this is showing you that this is max hawkish they can get, or they're kind of being tentative about like, well, we got to look at being aggressive, on terms of further cuts. So that's all he had to say, and the markets are all pissed. So it's interesting.
Well, it looks like a buy order came in now.
All right, let's go back to now we're finally starting to get a trigger bar on the 3-minute. Now, again, as gnarly as this sell down is, we're going into the 4-hour range or buy zone on SPX. You're into the daily 50. That's what we hit. Essentially, that's where our bounce is coming from, right? Daily 50 hit and weekly 9 EMA zone here. So these are big moving averages. To just smoke through them would be, pretty impressive. So I'm going to say that given, you have OPEX obviously, but if we start popping off of here, right now, let's look at the SPX. This is the ES, right? So those are the futures. Those matter. But if we look at the SPX, we're just touching just above the weekly 9 EMA. As you can see here, right, this last pullback that we got, you ended up hitting the weekly 9 and also the 50, right, in that zone, but only for a couple of, not even a day, really, farting around there. And then boom, out, big bounce. So these are big levels in an uptrend. Don't get all, lose sight of what's going on here. We're higher high and looks like we're making a higher low, right? So if this is the top in the market, let's just say the markets did top out at 6,100 SPX, at the very least, you're going to get a rally to at least probably back up to 60.75 or something like that would be, close that gap up there, for example. So markets typically you know, do a little dance at the top before they totally puke. But you do have to look at the markets as potentially have topped out, right? Until you make a new high, you have to assume, given all of the factors, that the markets may potentially have topped out before the end of the year. So, all right, Powell's done talking. So let's see if there's a relief rally from him. So far, the 3-minute has not signaled a buy. 1 minute essentially printing a +4 on our trend line. So that you typically in a downtrend, you're looking for a snapback down again, which is currently in play here. Again, I don't really pay attention to those sniper signals in this situation. Don't have any buy arrows. The last buy arrow on the 1 minute we had was way back up here, and that lasted for about 5 minutes, and then things started to roll back over.
NVIDIA stayed green throughout this whole cycle. So if there's anything that you want to grab, NVIDIA probably be a stock you might want to grab.
Getting a counter trend buy signal in the 5-minute. That's another signal we have. 5-minute is triggering. But I don't have any buy signals just yet. Right now, it's just these 1 minute +4 readings just getting smacked back down.
Yeah. And the DIA, massive bearish engulfing pattern below the channel. So this could be the puke out, Phil, the scared of children move before it reverses.
All right, so that's done. The Treasury 5-year yield has hit its highest level since early July, up 13 basis points, up to 4.384%.
Yeah, market doesn't like it.
Last thing Powell said was, turns out that the core inflation is a better predictor of overall inflation than overall inflation. So we look at core inflation because it's a better measure of what the future inflation is likely to be, because it's a better measure of what inflation pressure exists. All right. Powell says they're not going to settle for inflation above 2%. Guess what? They're probably going to settle for above 3%. But if the recession does occur next year, then I do, that'll take care of inflation ultimately. But
yeah,
another round of printing, which they will do, mark my words, we will get QE 5 or 6, whatever we're up to. That's where you're going to see the narrative change to, we have to adjust. They've already done it once, right? Before it was 2%, then it was like, oh, we're going to let inflation run a little hotter than 2%, which is if you look back on that was a huge mistake to be letting that run. But you get that periodically from the Fed. You'll get an adjustment again, and they're going to just say, look, these markets now, we have to allow for inflation to run at 3%. Meanwhile, your aggregate inflation from 2019 is up at 28% higher or something like that. I mean, it's just, it's stupid. So they're completely out of touch with reality. So that was the last Fed meeting of 2024, and they gave you a giant turd for a present. Let's look at BTC on this chart here. BTC looks a lot better in terms of trying to put in a turn here on the 1 minute, obviously. Looking at the 15-minute chart, we're still fighting at that support level I showed you on the other chart. So that's the mid-wick of the 15-minute. Obviously, they're respecting that, which is, that's typically what you'd want to see. Draw that rectangle support area again.
Yeah, everything's puking up now. Here's the scary thing is MicroStrategy is still above its weekly linear regression.
Yeah, it just had big moves.
So it went from 100 to 550. So
So Bitcoin's holding in this support range, right? Ultimately, you want to see it break it back above here and start pushing back up. Got a trigger bar here for on the 5-minute, which means heads up for a reversal. If we go back to the S&P 500, it's just getting no relief at all. SPX is flipping that ranger. This technically still a buy though. This dip buy. Historical volatility is alerting on Bitcoin, and S&P 500 right on the weekly 9. So even though we've had this big drop, I still think this area ultimately bounces and gets back higher. And then we have to watch for a lower high on the index. Okay. So that's what happens now into the end of the year. Pretty important in terms of whether or not we get back to new highs. If we get back to new highs, then I think we can run into into January a bit. Otherwise, the highs are in for the market, and I'm talking the highs, like bear market begins kind of stuff. So really important what happens from here in terms of testing back up against these previous highs. Today was a pretty significant drop that sets, that's what it's setting up now. Setting up for a move back up and either a lower high or a new all-time high. And that's it. New all-time high buys you a few more weeks. Lower high cements this, I think, for a long time. I think it's that's significant.
Giving the MicroStrategy till Christmas Eve to see what the inclusion does for it. But I think I think the highs are in. Well, for sure the highs are in MicroStrategy for this cycle. It's not getting back to 550 anytime soon.
I think the Dow is topped out.
Dow's topped out.
Dow's topped. That's it. That's the end of your bull run, your secular bull run. The problem I see is the dollar,
Well, the dollar's going to get stronger and stronger as we get weaker and weaker because the rest of the world is printing currency now like crazy.
There's just no bid in this market. It's just drifting lower and lower and lower. There's just no two-way trade at all.
Mm-mm.
We just have this, we just have these bigger technical levels, right, that we're just dipping into. Get rid of that, actually. That's no longer an unfilled gap. So, guys, if basically bottom line is this with a half hour to go in this market, if this area doesn't hold here, then essentially what I would be looking for is, you got black, right? So, you could mess around here overnight and then start grinding back up. This, the 786 level, this becomes hugely important. If we don't get back above that, and challenge these highs, then that could be the top of your market, right? And everybody gets complacent in here because you think, oh, we're going to go to the all-time highs. In reality, what the market's doing is it's topping out. And if we do get this move, what do you get? You get a big head and shoulders pattern, right?
Well, I didn't want to be right, Phil.
Here's a head and shoulders pattern, right? So then if you break this trend line down, that's it. Like the market that is your top formation in the bull market. That's it. And then we look for those job numbers to continue to deteriorate. And, not the area you want to be making big allocations to go long, right? This area. We've been saying that for a while. This is not, you're looking to scale out now, not buy into this market. So I think this is what's setting up. And when we get to this juncture right here, this is like for all the marbles for the time being. Like this is either going to buy us a few more weeks up closer to the inauguration or not. So we'll see what we get. If we do get that rally, right, that we typically see in December seasonally going into the end of the month, then that's what this sets up, a move up like that. But that's next week. So we'll have to see how that panned out. But I do think that this will catch a bid off of this level just because of these moving averages. It's no different than this. You go back to this point in the chart, guys, and you look at this move down, not knowing anything else in the future, right? Moving into these moving averages. I mean, this looks like absolute death. Doesn't look like it's going to hold, right? And then all of a sudden, boop, next day up. And then ultimately that level holds and you just absolutely rip from there. So, I think it's just a very, very, very similar setup. Big levels in terms of moving averages, the weekly 9, the daily 50, and a pullback in a strong uptrend. The odds are you're going to get some kind of bounce out of here. It just doesn't seem like it at the moment.
Just remember, when you sell off on Wednesday on Fed Day, Thursday is an up day. Because they got a lot of people leaning short right now.
Yeah, that is just an ugly candle, right? That 4-hour candle is almost 150 points, which is huge for a 4-hour candle on these markets. It's just absolutely huge. Yeah, market's puking up into the close here, guys. Nobody wants to touch this thing today. We'll be in a this is going to be a negative gamma environment for stocks, which means volatility is going to be kicked up tomorrow. So going to be a little different trading environment going into tomorrow versus what we've been seeing the last few days, because we've been in a positive gamma environment, which is just you're on the right side of the options positioning basically, and so price is more supportive. But now in your negative gamma, it forces the dealers to trade along with price, and that means that you just get very whippy two-way trading going on. But today is ugly day. So all these +4 prints on the trend change line, all they do is snapping us lower. So if we get another pop, you assume this is going to continue until it doesn't. But so far, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 now prints that ended with lower lows. It's 3:38. There's only like 22 minutes left in the market, and basically if they're going to make a move. The only thing we have left is the 50 algo, which fires off at 3:50 p.m. Eastern, which is an end of day market move that fires off from funds and different things like that. Sometimes that can generate a quick reversal, and then you have another one that fires off at 3:55. So we'll stick around for that and see what happens if they do get some of this back. Some of these end of day covers can basically erase 30 minutes or an hour's worth of work by the bears. But this is broad selling, broad unwind here when you see this kind of move. I think for me, the biggest takeaway was how they moved right through that 6,000 level, because that was a significant strike for SPX options, right? So up here, you could see it with holding as support, holding as support. That's going to be key in getting a move back up. If this is just, a one-day wonder type of move, which it could be, you got to get back above this level here. That's hugely important.
Palantir is imploding. Well, we're going to kill inflation pretty fast when nobody has any. Can you imagine all the people selling now, creating these taxable events? They're not even waiting for next year. MicroStrategy is down almost 11% now. That 280s that 280 gap fill might happen. He's lost all his premium to Bitcoin at this point. So disappointed in him.
Just looking at some VWAP levels here.
I think he pressed his bet at the wrong time.
We smoked through these monthly VWAPs. Absolutely smoked through them. And smoke through the quarter. I mean, this is what I call institutional type moves, because we're just smoking through like fairly significant technical levels. Like the quarterly VWAP, typically I would look for some kind of reaction. That was around 6,001. I mean, we paused there for a brief moment and then right through it. So these are significant move. It does not care about these technical levels too much. So we're gonna see what we get in the last 8 minutes if there's any kind of short covering here. The yield curve is relatively flat. I do think we're going to get an oversold bounce. I don't know how much of that today, but we should see an oversold bounce because, again, we're coming into pretty big moving average levels here.
Yeah.
We're getting a trigger bar in the 1 minute. This is pretty pegged on our histogram. All yellows like that on the 1 minute. Pretty pegged, pretty oversold.
Yeah. We're going to get it tomorrow. We're going to get oversold bounce tomorrow. I can't tell you how many times we've seen this market dump like this on a Fed meeting, and everybody shorting into the hole, and then they just rip a relief rally Thursday afternoon. I have to check in to see if Santa found where his sleigh is.
Yeah, this is a really, really bad spill.
NVIDIA is holding up really well, guys. So I think just keep an eye on NVIDIA as a potential. Palantir is about ready to break below 70. See, right now everybody's protecting themselves because we're in negative gamma fill for Friday's OPEX.
Right.
Oh, all I'm going to say is that
Well, we're in negative gamma, right? So that does create fairly vicious snapbacks in terms of reversals. So like Bob said, tomorrow you could, tomorrow could be a gap up, right? I'll have to take a look at the data and the strikes tomorrow night. We'll report into the room and see what looks probable.
yeah, I can't overreact till Friday. I want to see the gap. Remember, we still have inclusions into the indexes too that you got to keep an eye on. Yeah, I'm starting to get some buying here, Phil. Into the close. People don't want to hold shorts overnight. I think I'm going to close my Palantir puts here. Let me look at them. Yeah, I'm out of the air.
Yeah, we are quite a bit under the weekly 9 here. All right, so the 1 minute, again, noisy, but 1 minute's finally signaling. Last time we had a signal was way up here, so we're getting a signal here on the 1 minute. Looks like that's going to confirm. We'll have to see on the close here. Okay, 1 minute gives us an early buy signal. Now, again, we're +4 on this line in a heavy downtrend. So I would expect this isn't going to be a straightforward thing higher. I think there's going to be a fight in here. Let's look at the 3 minute, which is what I normally look at during the day on the ES. And we just have nothing in the way of signals yet down here. So,
Wow, yeah, they destroyed ExxonMobil again too.
you want to see for a bounce, sustained bounce, you want to see this histogram start to turn green. It's telling you not to be long this market since the Fed announcement. So that tells you how intense the selling's been, because they've been able to hold this 1 minute signal, which is not easy to do. You have to have a really strong trend in order to hold that histogram red like that. So,
Well, MicroStrategy just literally gone up $20 here. Oh,
yeah, let's see how BTC is doing around that support level. So that was what the area we were looking for. Didn't hold. This is our hourly bar. Ultimately, we'll have to see how our hourly bar closes. The hourly bar did sweep this low down here at 100,602. So if that closes above, that's a bullish swing failure pattern on the hourly for that level.
yeah.
4 hours is going to till the end of the daily candle for Bitcoin, which closes at 7 p.m. Eastern, to see if we get that here as well.
NVIDIA went green, guys.
Bitcoin needs to reclaim this area. So see what's up there. Back to our 1 minute chart on the ES. Obviously, got the buy signal there. Like the other one, good for some scalp points so far, right? But whether or not this segues into a larger move up remains to be seen. It would be helpful to see the histo turn green on the 1 minute, at least to signal a start of something. And we got the 50 algo ready to fire here in about 5 seconds. So let's see what the 50 algo does. Somewhat muted so far. The other level we look at is the 330 print. In a normal market environment, you will gyrate around the 330 print. So 330 prints up at 6,000. I mean, we're mild. This is this is a monster range in terms of that 330 print. Like just really huge. Over 50 points. That's so abnormal. I can't even tell you. Normally, you'll get a move back to it 9 times out of 10. Now, it's going to take a vicious rally in the next 10 minutes to get back up there, but not impossible on a day like this.
NVIDIA is ripping now. I put a trade out there a couple minutes ago.
So let's see if they can get this back up to this level here. 6,009. Again, like I've been saying, we've crossed on ES, we've overthrown these moving averages quite a bit. But on the SPX itself, not so much. Right? We've dipped into them. We have overthrown them, but I still think we get a bounce. We'll have to see. The key here would be getting back over the weekly 9 EMA, which is 59.42 on SPX. Getting back above that. If we don't, and that turns into resistance, we're probably going to dead cat bounce and make new lows. So that's something to keep an eye on as we wrap up the week. But typically, these moves into these levels eventually give us a nice big bounce. The only time I would say I haven't seen that would be at the end of bull markets where we just start broadly selling off.
Yeah, and this selling of the big caps is is quite concerning to me. So
Basically, nothing
bidding.
good comes from being under the announcement by this much. You either get back over that announcement level up at 61.36 or this market's toast, in my opinion. So as we get into the close here, pretty decent reversal bounce here on BTC so far, right? That this support level, I think, is fairly significant to hold.
Yeah. A big reversal on MicroStrategy too. Wow, look at this move now.
That's a healthy 30-minute hammer there on BTC.
Hey guys, remember the last 30 minutes is what matters most for the next day. So I'm predicting gap up tomorrow. Well, overreact to anything today.
Yeah, I'm going to lean on the fact that we pressed into the daily 50, the weekly 9. That ultimately, gives us a relief bounce. But make no mistake, I mean, this move down is pretty significant. You have to now be basically the way I would look at this market is, unless it makes a new high, you have to look at any moves back toward the highs, right? If we say we get a rally, we do end up getting a rally into the month end. That rally, it can't just die at the 786 retrace, for example. And if you guys aren't familiar with Fibonacci retracements, I can draw it for you guys, but most of you probably are. But you can't die, on one hand, like if you look at our volatility ranges, all we've done is gone back to basically the middle of the volatility range on the 4-hour chart, right? So it's not like we're falling out of bed here, right? This is more of a mean reversion type move. So as deep as today's pullback was, we still, we didn't take out this low, for example, right? So and we've got a low over here. So even if this is all we get, it just turns into a higher low. So you have that aspect of it. But if you take the fib retracement, and let's just do a short. Let's pull one for the bears. All right, so we go from the high to the low. Okay, so our 618 is here. Let's add the 786 for good measure. So let's just say over the course of the next couple of days, we start bouncing back up. This all of a sudden, this area here is just hugely important for me in terms of whether or not this market has actually topped out because of what happened today. So this level here, right? Same thing for this is the futures. Same thing for this. If you guys want to look at the SPX levels, we can. Same thing, basically. So we'll take that fib retracement again, and we'll draw it like that. So on the SPX, you're looking at between 60.11 and 60.50. You really have to keep an eye on that spot when we get back up there. If we crack above 60.50, that bodes very well. But, in terms of this market top, this is that spot there is really, really, really important. Which is, now you kind of have parameters to work with in terms of whether or not this market is going to continue. And like I showed you guys earlier, I think the worry, if we do top out here, is we have this massive inverted or this massive head and shoulder pattern that starts to play out, right? That's a huge problem. And that can top the market out for a long time, especially if we roll over into a recession. So if you've taken anything away from the live stream today, it's that we potentially may have topped this market out, and this becomes the key level now that we have to overcome if we're going to go higher into January. So the 55 algo was not a happy camper, fired straight back down the other way. Let me get rid of this fib line here. So overnight action will be very interesting to see what happens. But like Bob said, don't be surprised if they give us a bounce potentially overnight, actually, and we are up tomorrow. Because like Bob said, a lot of times when you have a heavy red day on the FOMC announcement day, they do tend to bounce it the other way initially.
Yep.
Let's check in on Mr. Bitcoin.
And just look what held up today, because that's probably where the strength's going to be. I think the selling in NVIDIA is pretty much over.
Yeah, the fact that Nvidia hasn't died tells you that, it's coming back down pretty strongly, though.
We're going after the froth. Well, we have 30 seconds left here to 40 seconds left.
Man, they are selling that bounce on Nvidia pretty hard.
No, I'm talking about Nvidia did not crash today at all. It's down $1. I think it might be pretty much washed out.
Yeah, the thing with Nvidia, it's already had sold off so much.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And it's at the bottom of the volatility range too.
Yep. Uh-oh.
Nvidia is going to make a new low on the day into the close, or at least try to. They just evaporated that entire bounce. Oh, there, they bounced it right in the close.
Good.
Ugly day across the board, though.
Yeah.
Ugly day. Well, Jerome's probably going to get a call from Trump.
Yeah.
Look for, so tomorrow, watch the Fed if they walk back some of this hawkishness tomorrow and the next day.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be surprised. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Watch for a post FOMC bounce, oversold bounce off these big technical levels, the weekly 9 EMA, the 50-day SMA. And if we don't, that'll probably opens up a move down on the SPX, right? Because SPX has the round numbers that have the, have all the pull, right? SPX is down to 58.72. So we're in negative gamma territory. Tomorrow should be, I would imagine, be really volatile during the day. But for the SPX, you're going to have to get back above 5,900 for starters and then see if that 6,000, that's a big strike up there, if that acts at all as a magnet for a bounce back up. But there's major technical damage done from this move down in terms of the S&P 500 now. And we got OPEX is, coming on Friday. That's a huge OPEX. It's a Super Bowl of all the OPEXs of the year end. So this got everybody a little left-footed, and I expect a volatile next couple of days. So be careful out there if you are trading this stuff intraday. I think it'd be very, very dicey. So
yeah,
for you guys in the room, I'll take a look overnight. We'll take a look at some of the levels in terms of the options positionings, and we'll take a look at what levels need to hold at this point for a potential rally back up. Yeah. And if you guys want to be in the room with us, check out our stuff over at tradegenius.co. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See you guys. Bye.